Every slice of sashimi melts delicately on your tongue. Every glistening strip of tuna is served beneath the dazzling lights of an elegant dining table. But have you ever caught the faint scent of blood and sweat dripping behind that perfection? Through the romantic lens of travel films, the ocean appears as a tranquil expanse of endless blue. Yet beneath thousands of meters of water lies one of the most brutal battlefields on Earth. A place where countless lives are crushed every second, and where human beings gamble with their own lives to secure food for the world. The global fishing industry is no fairy tale of the sea. It is a blood-soaked epic, an endless struggle between humanity's fragile instinct to survive and the overwhelming fury of nature. If you have the courage to pull back the luxurious velvet curtain, to stare directly into the ocean's dark, unfathomable eyes, and uncover the terrifying truths hidden behind your own meal, then don't miss a single moment of this journey. Before we set sail into the storm of reality, please subscribe to our channel. Your support gives us the strength to continue venturing into the world's most extraordinary and unfiltered places, bringing Earth's greatest stories to you. Welcome to India Channel. Take one deep breath, because on this voyage, oxygen will become a luxury. Our journey begins where the heartbeat of the ocean pounds the hardest. The Indonesian archipelago, the bleeding heart of the Coral Triangle. I have stood upon the decks of fishing vessels rocking along the boundary between the Pacific and Indian Oceans, where you can almost feel the immense tectonic plates shifting beneath the seafloor. The fractured seabed, jagged like the fangs of a giant predator, tears apart powerful ocean currents and forces icy, nutrient-rich waters, laden with nitrates and phosphates, to surge toward the surface. Then sunlight pierces through the mist, warming this immense biological soup and igniting an explosion of life unlike anywhere else on Earth. Phytoplankton bloom in staggering numbers. Swarms of small fish arrive in desperate pursuit of survival within an endless food chain, and close behind them come the relentless hunters of the tropical seas, skipjack tuna. Though the smallest member of the tuna family, skipjack possess extraordinary resilience and exist in overwhelming numbers, making them the backbone of the world's canned tuna industry. But humanity has never been content to rely on luck alone. To satisfy the insatiable appetite of billions of people on land, ingenious minds devised a deadly invention known as the Fish Aggregating Device, or FAD. At first glance, these are nothing more than simple bamboo rafts drifting harmlessly across the sea. For countless generations, instinct has taught small fish to seek shelter beneath floating objects in the vast emptiness of the open ocean, using them as protection from hungry seabirds above. Tragically, that innocent refuge becomes the perfect trap. Schools of tuna, following their prey, converge beneath the floating structure, unknowingly imprisoning themselves within a banquet meticulously prepared by humans. Modern industrial fleets no longer depend on intuition or exhausting labor. From wheelhouses hundreds of nautical miles away, captains monitor radar screens, GPS systems, and sophisticated sonar equipment. The instant the displays reveal that the execution is ready to begin, gigantic purse seiners, steel monsters of the sea, move into position. A net stretching for kilometers and plunging as deep as a skyscraper descends into the water, enclosing everything gathered around the FAD. The bottom of the net tightens. Foaming water erupts to the surface, thick with desperation. Hundreds of tons of tuna crash violently against one another inside the shrinking prison. But tuna are not the only victims. Sea turtles, dolphins, juvenile sharks, all are crushed, suffocated, and hauled lifeless onto the deck by cold, indifferent cranes. It is destruction perfected by machinery, efficient, relentless, and leaving no escape for life itself. Standing before such a massacre, I could not help but wonder whether the ocean had any future left. Yet in some of Indonesia's most remote waters, I found a reason to hope. There were no machines of destruction here, only an ancient method of fishing, pole and line tuna fishing. This is not industrial harvesting. It is a deadly dance, a fair duel between human strength and the wild instinct of the fish. When fishermen locate a boiling school of tuna, they scatter buckets of anchovies into the sea. At the same time, powerful water jets spray continuously across the surface, creating a dense artificial mist. The illusion of fleeing baitfish awakens the tuna's predatory instincts. Balanced along the slippery rails of a rolling boat, dozens of sunburned fishermen stand like Roman gladiators entering an arena. Their calloused hands grip solid fiberglass poles fitted with barbless hooks, disguised with colorful feathers. Then comes the strike. A tuna, moving like a torpedo, lunges forward and swallows the lure. At the very instant life and death become connected by a single fishing line, the fisherman unleashes an explosive pull, driving every ounce of strength from his back, shoulders, and arms. The powerful fish rockets through the air above their heads before crashing perfectly onto the deck. The moment it lands, the barbless hook slips free automatically, and the rhythm begins again. Cast. Hook. Lift. Less than 3 seconds per cycle. What unfolds on deck is a scene of breathtaking chaos. Sweat mixes with seawater. Muscles tremble at the limits of human endurance. Razor-sharp hooks whistle overhead, carrying the constant threat of injury or death. Yet this brutal physical sacrifice gives birth to something extraordinary. Not a single sea turtle, not a single dolphin, not a single shark dies needlessly. The level of bycatch is virtually zero. Every tuna brought aboard is earned through sweat, skill, and respect, making pole and line fishing one of the world's most sustainable methods of harvesting tuna. Watching these fishermen, I finally understood something profound. Humanity is capable of drawing life from the ocean to feed itself without becoming an indiscriminate destroyer. We can live from the sea without carrying the guilt of those who leave only devastation behind. The moment life leaves their bodies beneath the scorching equatorial sun, skipjack tuna are immediately thrown into the holds of massive freezer vessels, where the temperature plummets to a bone-chilling -60 degrees Celsius. Here, death is frozen in time. The fierce vitality of one of the ocean's fastest predators is reduced to lifeless blocks of flesh, hard as stone, silent and motionless. When the ships finally dock at the bustling port of Bitung, or at countless other harbors scattered along Indonesia's coastline, the pungent smell of fish blood mingles with the acrid fumes of diesel fuel, creating an air so heavy it is almost suffocating. From the ship's frozen holds, thousands of tons of tuna are hoisted out and carelessly dumped onto rust-stained conveyor belts, beginning their journey through the immense machinery of the seafood processing industry. If the ocean is a battlefield of relentless violence, then the canning factories are silent slaughterhouses, places where brutality has been refined into routine, justified by efficiency, and perfected by machines. Stepping through the thick steel doors of the processing plant, I was confronted by a scene that was as overwhelming as it was heartbreaking. Beneath the harsh glow of pale fluorescent lights stood thousands of workers, most of them women, with dark circles beneath tired eyes and hands wrinkled from endless hours immersed in water. They lined both sides of seemingly endless stainless steel work tables, shoulder to shoulder. The air was torn apart by the deafening roar of steam boilers, the relentless clang of metal, and the grinding rhythm of mechanical saws splitting frozen tuna in half. After thawing and cooking, each fish was stripped of its dark skin and sturdy skeleton entirely by hand. The women repeated the same motion over and over again, Scrape. Remove the bones. Separate the dark meat from the white. Thousands of times a day. Day after day. Splinters of bone pierced their fingers until they bled. Their backs gradually curved from spending 12, sometimes 14 hours bent over the tables without rest. They labored inside an atmosphere thick with scorching steam, rising from enormous pressure cookers, a stark contrast to the freezing cold they had endured only hours earlier aboard the refrigerated vessels. Within this production line, the life of a magnificent ocean predator is reduced to lifeless statistics. Productivity, yield, profit margins. Pale pink chunks of tuna are crammed into empty steel cans with mechanical indifference. Automated machines inject cooking oil, brine, or tomato sauce infused with preservatives before sealing each can shut with a cold metallic stamp. And just like that, it is finished. An entire lifetime spent racing across the boundless ocean is permanently imprisoned inside a container no larger than a human fist. It is no longer a living creature. It has become a product, a commodity born from the relentless exploitation of nature and the sweat and sacrifice of workers at the very bottom of society. As I watched countless cans roll endlessly along the conveyor belts, gleaming beneath emotionless factory lights, I found myself wondering, how many people, opening a can of tuna during a hurried lunch break, could ever taste the bitterness carried within it, the bitterness of the lives left behind in this place. Yet behind those neatly stacked cans with their glossy labels lies a silent darkness, the untold story of the men and women who spend their lives at sea, a reality the global supply chain has long preferred to keep hidden. The brutality of the seafood industry does not end with the destruction of marine ecosystems. It devours our own kind as well. While multinational corporations report annual revenues worth tens of billions of dollars, the very people who bleed to bring fish ashore remain trapped in an endless cycle of poverty. I once sat silently on an Indonesian harbor late at night, listening to fishermen tell the stories of their lives through the bitter smoke of cheap cigarettes and eyes hollowed by exhaustion. They do not sail because they dream of conquering the sea, as romantic novels would have us believe. They sail because of mounting debts, because hungry children are crying for food in crumbling coastal slums. To them, the ocean is not a gentle mother nature. It is a ruthless creditor, forever waiting to claim their lives. Have you ever wondered how a can of tuna can travel halfway around the world and still sell for so little? The answer lies in a labor system built upon exploitation. Aboard distant water fishing vessels that scour the deep oceans, fishermen routinely work 18 to 20 hours a day, regardless of storms or raging seas. They are confined aboard rusting floating prisons for months, sometimes even years, without setting foot on land. Fresh water for bathing is an unimaginable luxury. Their meals often consist of stale rice and damaged fish that cannot be sold. Danger lurks everywhere. A snapped steel winch cable can slice a man in half in an instant. A rusted hook can bury itself deep into flesh during the darkness of the night. A violent storm can crush an entire vessel beneath the waves. And when disaster strikes thousands of nautical miles from shore, there are no ambulances, no hospitals, no insurance, only desperate screams swallowed by the relentless roar of the sea. Severely injured fishermen are often abandoned at the tiny clinic of some remote island, or worse, their bodies are returned to the ocean itself so that the fishing schedule remains uninterrupted. Even the pole-and-line fishermen, the environmental warriors I spoke of earlier, cannot escape this cruel cycle. Although their fishing method protects the marine ecosystem, the value of their labor is mercilessly diminished. Middlemen control every step of the supply chain, purchasing their catch for a pittance before selling it to processing factories at enormous markups. The fishermen leave their sweat pooling across the decks of their boats. Yet the few coins they carry home are barely enough to buy a sack of low-quality rice. Back on shore, their wives wait endlessly, living with constant dread whenever the weather forecast announces another approaching storm. Some husbands never return. They leave behind young widows and orphaned children, who eventually grow up only to be drawn back into the same unforgiving cycle of the sea because they have no other choice. Poverty has sunk its roots deep into these coastal communities, draining away hope and opportunity until people become nothing more than cheap, disposable gears inside an endless industrial machine. From the fish-soaked harbors of Indonesia, those lifeless cans of tuna spread their tentacles across the globe, finding their way onto the shelves of gleaming supermarkets from New York and London to Tokyo, and perhaps even the neighborhood grocery store just around the corner from where you live. Beneath warm golden lights and soft background music, the cans are stacked into flawless towers, proudly displaying colorful labels designed to inspire trust. Premium ocean tuna, nature's superfood. Bright illustrations of smiling tuna glide through crystal-clear blue waters. The irony is almost unbearable. The brutal truth about deadly fish aggregating devices, about purse seines that sweep away every living creature in their path, about fishermen driven to the limits of human endurance, has been carefully scrubbed away, hidden beneath layers of glossy packaging. Geographical distance, combined with the sophistication of modern commerce, has created one of the greatest disconnects in human history. We no longer know, or perhaps no longer wish to know, where our food truly comes from. The modern consumer enters a supermarket like royalty. Without a second thought, they toss cans of tuna costing little more than $1 or $2 into their shopping cart. That impossibly low price lulls the conscience to sleep, creating the comforting illusion that the ocean's resources are endless and free. But in a market economy, nothing is ever free. Whenever you pay an unbelievably cheap price for a product, someone or something has paid the remainder with their own life. That price is paid by millions of dolphins and sea turtles that suffocate inside fishing nets. It is paid by coral reef ecosystems slowly collapsing beneath the waves. It is paid by the workers whose bodies and spirits are exhausted throughout the global supply chain. The illusion of cheap food is, in reality, an enormous debt, a debt we borrow from nature itself and from the future of our own children. In recent years, as public concern over environmental destruction has grown, labels proclaiming "sustainably caught" and "dolphin safe" have begun appearing across supermarket shelves. Consumers purchase them, feeling a quiet sense of relief, believing they have helped save the planet simply by spending a few extra cents. But after making my way through the shadows of audit reports and certification documents, I came to a far more unsettling realization. Behind many of those green labels lie enormous regulatory loopholes, political compromise, and sophisticated campaigns of corporate greenwashing. A small sticker placed upon the lid of a can cannot magically reverse the collapse of an entire oceanic food web. The harsh reality remains unchanged. Humanity is consuming tuna faster than tuna populations can replenish themselves. And instead of confronting our insatiable appetite, we attempt to hide it behind the thin veneer of certification labels. Standing at the crossroads between limitless greed and the survival of our planet, we can no longer afford to close our eyes to the cries rising from the depths of the ocean. The journey we have taken together was never meant to leave you drowning in despair. It was meant to tear away the comforting illusion that has long hidden the truth, and force us to look reality in the eye. The ocean is not a magical bottomless reservoir that endlessly replenishes itself no matter how much we take. It is a living organism. Today, It is bleeding. It is struggling for every breath beneath wounds inflicted by humanity itself. If we continue to rely on destructive industrial purse-seine fleets, if we continue to tolerate the ruthless exploitation of the very people whose lives depend on the sea, then the collapse of our oceans is no longer a distant possibility. It is approaching far faster than we care to admit. When skipjack tuna, the backbone of the open ocean ecosystem and one of its most vital links, finally disappear, the entire marine food web will unravel like a line of falling dominoes. The brilliant blue oceans we once celebrated will become vast deserts of salt water, silent, lifeless, and empty. Humanity will face one of the greatest food crises in history, a devastating price for today's greed and ignorance. But this story is not an argument for abandoning seafood altogether, nor is it a call to give up one of nature's greatest gifts. I still believe in the ancient tradition of pole and line fishing practiced in Indonesia. I believe in the strength of those fishermen who push their bodies to the limit while showing genuine respect for every life they take from the sea. They prove that humanity and nature are not destined to be enemies. We are capable of living together in balance, fairly, responsibly, and sustainably. What must change is not whether we eat seafood. It is how we choose to eat it, and how strongly we demand transparency from the industries that place food on our tables. The greatest power does not belong to the corporate executives sitting comfortably in air-conditioned boardrooms directing fleets from thousands of miles away. It belongs to you. It lies inside your wallet, inside every purchasing decision you make. The next time you stand in front of a supermarket shelf, pick up a can of tuna and ask yourself, where did it come from? How was it caught? Does it carry the blood of innocent marine life? Or the sweat of exploited workers hidden inside? Refuse products whose origins cannot be traced. Use your voice and your purchasing power to demand that retailers and brands support responsibly sourced, pole and line fisheries that provide fair livelihoods for fishing communities. Every dollar you spend on genuinely sustainable seafood is a vote cast for the future of the ocean. Every careless purchase is another wound inflicted upon it. The fight to save our oceans is not the responsibility of conservationists or politicians alone. It is a shared responsibility, one that belongs to every single one of us. Do not allow future generations to experience the majesty of the ocean only through dusty documentaries preserved in museums and archives. Act today. Begin with the choices you make at your own dinner table. If these truths have moved you, if you believe more people deserve to see what lies beneath the surface, please don't keep this story to yourself. Share this video with your family and friends. Help spread the truth. And don't forget to subscribe so you can join us as we continue uncovering the world's deepest mysteries and its most powerful untold stories. Thank you for having the courage to stay with us until the very end of this journey. We'll see you again in the next adventure, where even greater storms await. Closing summary. The journey of a single can of tuna, from the vast open ocean to the brightly lit shelves of a supermarket, reveals a harsh reality that the global supply chain has spent decades trying to conceal. It is not merely a story about collapsing marine ecosystems, where industrial fishing destroys millions of innocent lives. It is also an indictment of a system built upon the exploitation of fishermen and factory workers whose labor remains invisible to the consumers they feed. The remarkably low price of this everyday convenience is paid not with money alone, but with blood, sweat, and human dignity. Consumer indifference, combined with sophisticated corporate greenwashing, continues to push our oceans closer to irreversible collapse. Yet the power to change this trajectory does not rest solely with governments or multinational corporations. It begins with every purchase we make. By rejecting ethically questionable products and demanding transparency throughout the supply chain, we are not only protecting the cradle of life on Earth, we are defending the dignity of the people whose lives depend upon it. The ocean is not infinite. Every act of careless consumption today is a loan taken from the future of generations yet to come. The time has come to pull back the curtain of illusion and choose a more responsible way of living and consuming. In a market economy, nothing is ever truly cheap. Whenever a product is sold at an unbelievably low price, the missing cost is almost always being paid elsewhere, through the depletion of nature or through the sweat, blood, and hardship of vulnerable workers. The greatest power does not belong to corporations. It belongs to informed consumers and to the choices they make every single day.